On the Build Show today, 4 reasons why you want an air gap behind your siding. Let's get going. All right, Steve, what's reason 1?
Reason 1, water is the #1 killer of buildings. Get rid of it.
Yep,
Drain
right.
it.
So with this air gap behind here, if water gets in there, what's gonna happen to that water?
Gravity. Gravity falls and it just comes right out the bottom, and we gotta have a place for it to go, right? Joe Stieberk would always say down and out. Drain it down and out. What I always say about the #1 thing to do with water is get rid of it. Make it somebody else's problem, right?
100%.
Being the #1 killer of buildings, we don't want it sticking around. We don't want it finding a second way. We want to give it a quick path, get rid of it, get it out of our life.
What's the second reason, Steve?
The second reason is durability, durability of the paint film, right? And that's part of the drying out aspect that space gives us, that we have that ability for the siding to dry and not remain wet.
That's right.
And it prolongs the durability of that.
No matter whether this is James Hardie's fiber cement or wood or even stone or some other cladding, by being able to dry to the front or the back, if this is a painted siding, the paint film is going to last twice as long. And Steve and I have built houses all going on close to 20 years ago that have this. A lot of them still have their original paint job because of this.
Yeah, my personal house is probably in year 13-ish, where the siding looks like I painted it yesterday.
For sure. Reason number 3, by doing this on an air gap, it means that caulking at your joints where siding comes together, it's really optional. It's purely aesthetic. Caulk should be aesthetic, not a way to keep water out of the assembly. We don't care if water gets back here. For instance, if we use zip system sheathing, we're gonna have all of our corners taped. We're gonna have our seams taped. We're gonna have our penetrations flashed correctly. So if water gets back there, we don't care. That water can drain out, and then the airflow will come through the bottom, and we'll have an airflow at the top. It'll drain and dry out, and this cladding will stay nice and dry. Caulking is optional.
You know, it's interesting. I just did a post on Rain Screens or Build Show Network video, and a gentleman commented that water doesn't get behind the siding. And my response was to him that you probably couldn't be more naive about putting siding on a building to believe that water never gets here. And if you don't believe me, you know, zip hasn't been around a long time, but what has is, you know, plywood and building paper, or, you know, some of the house wraps. For all those remodelers out there, when you pull the siding off and that house wrap is all brown and black stained, that's water that has gotten in there and then dried out.
That's right.
So there's evidence almost in every house that you remodel that water gets behind here. It's not stopping.
100%. And the fourth and final reason, it's lowering your building risk, your builder risk. There's much more forgiveness in this assembly because of this rain screen. And while we're at it, let's show you the detail we used here. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. This happens to be a product by Keen called Easy Fur. It comes in a roll. You roll it out and staple it on, and then your siding goes right on that, nails right through that into the studs. And at the base and at the top, you're gonna form some type of bug screen. This is just some cheap bug screen from the home center. We cut it into 6-inch strips. We tacked it on the wall. Then we added another one of these strips horizontally, wrapped it up, stapled it, and ran the siding as normal. The one thing though that you're gonna need to remember is some of your trim, your windows and doors, you have to do a mock-up ahead of time to see if this might come proud of those. You might have to go to, let's say, 5/4 trim rather than 3/4 trim. You might have to do some detail around your windows if there's not enough depth on your windows. There's a couple things. Anything else I missed, Steve?
No, but I love this stuff. It's, you know, I mean, you can't compress it. And the beauty of this, say, as opposed to, I do a lot of wood furring, but the beauty of this is you could put this horizontally and still does the same job if you had vertical siding.
If we had a vertical siding, we could do this horizontally.
So, you know, Keen makes it real easy to, orientation doesn't matter.
That's right. Great stuff. And the last comment I would say is if you're in a climate that's above 20 inches of rain a year, you should be doing this as a standard building practice. If you're in the desert, you have less than 20 inches a year, this might be optional. You're still going to get the benefits, but if you're over 20 inches, you should absolutely do this. And this is code in a lot of places in America, in the Pacific Northwest and Canada. It's code. You want to have an air gap behind there. The bigger the gap, the better, because you're going to have better drying. So I like at least a 1/2 or 3/4 air gap. If it was a smaller air gap, you'd still get some drainage. You'd have a lot less drying happening. When you go to 1/2 inch or 3/4, that's when you actually get drying.
Well, one of the things to note, you mentioned the code. If I provide an air gap here, it means that not only does this dry, but this gets to dry.
That's right.
And if this gets to dry, the code offers you a reduction in the class of vapor barrier on the inside of the wall, because your wall has the ability to now dry out to the outside into that space.
That's right.
So the code is starting to recognize building science and these types of systems, and they're coming along too.
One of my favorite quotes about this is by David Nicastro. It's not about keeping water out, it's about letting water out. Go watch Steve's videos over on Build Show Network. He's got tons of details on other rain screen assemblies, and I'll have a link to a playlist for lots more videos below on rain screens. We talk about these all the time because they're important for buildings, and there's a bunch of ways to do it, but big thanks to Keen for donating the material for this mock-up. Guys, if you're not currently a subscriber, hit that subscribe button below. We've got new content every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on The Build Show.